What's going on, my friends? Leo Cannell here with today's Seven Figures Club podcast. Remember, the purpose of this podcast is to help the 93 to 95% of small business owners and entrepreneurs and startups that will never eclipse the seven-figure income mark as a business. And we intend to give you the tools, strategies, and tactics to get you there. I've been fortunate to do it 3 times and continue to build up and take the next step. And it's very important to do it the right way. And today's topic, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's a good one. It's you've been hearing about this infrastructure bill. Congress and the president and Senate, they're coming together and they're building, getting our infrastructure right, because our roads and bridges and all these things are crumbling and tumbling because we have poor infrastructure apparently in this country that has not been dealt with and taken care of. The investments have not been made in our infrastructure in quite some time. But today I'm going to tell you how I built a $10 million business with poor infrastructure and why it ended up failing, and why it's important for you to make sure you've got your infrastructure right, your foundation, your roads, etc. So let's dive into this real quick.
There are over 32 million businesses in the U.S., and over 90% of them will never break 7 figures in annual sales. So how do we as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs break into that 7 figures club? This podcast will relentlessly share the secrets, strategies, and tactics I've used to create 3 multi-7 figures businesses and bring in even more successful entrepreneurs than me to share their inspirational stories and tactics to success. You can create your dream business and life right now. So buckle up and let's go.
So you've been hearing a lot about this infrastructure bill. They're getting it passed, and it's supposed to provide all sorts of solutions over the next several years. The good thing about it is, instead of it going into the hands of government, it is supposed to go into the hands of private enterprises that work on the roads, bridges, and the foundations, the actual infrastructure that our country needs. And so that is what is supposed to be taking place. Will it happen that way? Not sure, but generally a lot of people think it's supposed to be good, so hopefully it will be. But what I wanted to talk about today and educate you guys on is just, if you're trying to get into that 7 figures club, if you're trying to build a 7-figure business and operation, one of the keys that's going to get you there is actually having the right infrastructure in place. When we talk about infrastructure, we talk about foundations. And the interesting thing is, it makes me think back to a little primary song. If any of you've ever gone to Sunday school or church, they have these little things called primaries in our church, where kids hang out, and they can be a little bit louder and noisier, and they learn little things a different way, at the level of a child. And so yesterday was Sunday, and they had a big program in our church. And our kids were at this program, and they were singing. And one of the songs they sing has a pretty powerful message. And it talks about 2 men, and this is a parable that Jesus shared. The wise man built his house upon the rock, says the song, and the foolish man built his house upon the sand. And when the rain and the storm came, the house on the sand washed away. It didn't have a sure foundation, didn't have that infrastructure that it needed to survive the tough winds and the storms and the challenges and all the adversity that comes to all of us. And when you're an entrepreneur and a small business owner, sometimes it feels like that adversity is coming at you, one storm after another, inundating, overwhelming, and flooding you. And if you don't have the right infrastructure, the right foundation, the right roads and bridges, you will crumble, you will tumble, you'll be washed away. But if you've built a foundation built upon a rock, well, now you've got a chance to survive that and do well. And it makes me think back to the previous business that I had founded, that I was, heavily involved, all my blood, sweat, and tears into, and that business did not have the foundations. It did not have the infrastructure. And when the storms and the adversity came, it crumbled, it wilted. And that's why it's so important for you guys to build that right foundation. So what is that foundation? Well, what it starts out, and sometimes this is hard when it's just you and a partner, or you and one employee, or you and 2 or 3 your buddies starting together, but it has to begin with the right core values and principles. And no matter how you say them, they're very similar. They're very similar, but they've got to be in your language. They've got to be the way that you speak and the way that you think and believe. But a lot of them, in some way, shape, or form, are going to come down to following through on your commitments. At our company, we've got it on the wall. It says we're going to do what we say we're going to do. It's one of our top core values. It's funny, when I was in San Diego at the Traffic and Conversion Summit earlier this year, we had billionaire Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon, who took the words right out of my partner and my mouth, saying that that was one of their core values, that when people make commitments, they followed through with them. When they made commitments to their customers, to their employees, they did what they said they were going to do. They followed through with the commitments, whether you want to call that integrity, being a person of your word, whether you want to call it following through with commitments. That value and principle in some way, shape, or form is going to be found on the wall, or it's going to be found in the top businesses across the country, across the world. But if you don't actually live it, it won't matter. And that was one of the things in my previous company that we did absolutely lack. Word and bond meant nothing. People would say one thing, do another. Management would say one thing, do another. They would break commitments. They would mess with people's pay. And those are the types of things that lead to failure, because when the challenges and the adversity come, if you don't have the right people on the bus, if you don't have those core values and principles, you will fall. Another one of the big foundational items is having the right people on the bus. In Jim Collins' book, From Good to Great, one of the best books out there about business that I've ever read, he talks about this. They did all this research on some of the most successful businesses and companies in the world, and the ones that succeeded had what they called the right people on the bus. It didn't matter if the bus was even going the wrong direction. If you had the right people on the bus, you could literally pivot and change directions 180 degrees and you would succeed, because you had the right people on the bus. And the right people on the bus buy into your core values and principles. They buy into being focused on serving the customer, giving the customer the result that they need. They go all in with becoming experts at their field. If they're a salesperson, they're doing the extra time to read the book so that they can succeed. They're going all in to learn new skills about sales and marketing. If they are in your processing team, wherever their position is, they look at it as more than just a job, and that's what you need to have the great foundation, the great infrastructure to create that 7-figure business. And a lot of the time I hear, some of my mentors talk about non-negotiable values and principles. And one of those, I remember I was listening in on one of my mentors, Patrick Bet-David, and he was talking about the fact that early on in his business, he was given the opportunity where literally he could make an extra $1 million a year, but it would kind of be on the backs of his employees, his team. It would not have been transparent, and the whole idea of it was against his core values and principles. And so he said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what we're about here. I don't care how much money I could make on extra. It will never be worth it. And a lot of that is kind of the idea of short-term profits versus the long-term gains. It's going into the gray areas. It's not delivering value to your customer. It's knowing that maybe you can sell your customer, but overall you're going to get some crappy, reviews, and those crappy reviews are going to lead to your business losing out. It can be, trying to maximize profits or charge too much to a customer. Could be not playing ball and maybe even having to refund a crazy client to make a strategic partner happy. All these little things that add up to a strong foundation and success at the end of the day. So my invitation to you is to look at your business. Do you have the right foundation built? Do you have the right people on the bus that are building that foundation? Have you actually went and defined your core values and principles? Because if you haven't defined your core values and principles, then success is going to be very difficult for you to achieve. So my friends, take action, build your infrastructure, do it right, and we'll see you next time on the 7 Figures Club podcast.
Are you looking for more seven-figure secrets, content, or even how you can launch your own recession-proof business? Then check out sevenfigures.com. That's the digit 7, Figures.com, where we share more videos, stories, strategies, funding solutions, entrepreneurial education, and even the secret business type that's recession-proof. Thank you for listening, and if you're finding value in our podcast, please give us a 5-star and invite others to join the club.